I am super excited for this project because we're going to be building out a simple Google Maps clone using the Mapbox library. And this is a really fun project because it's actually quite easy to build out and it's super useful and really cool to show to different people. Also, you'll notice we're starting with absolutely no code at all. We're going to be building everything out for this project completely from scratch. So to get started, since we're going to be using Mapbox, the first thing you need to do is go to mapbox.com. You just click on the sign in button here. And then all you need to do is sign up for Mapbox by creating an account. I already have an account, so I'm just going to log in real quick. And once you're logged in, you should be brought to some form of dashboard like this. And you'll see that there is a pretty generous free tier on all the different things that you can do. For our use case, really all we're going to be doing is loading up the map and we're going to be getting directions, which is what Google Maps does. So we're not going to be hitting any of these free thresholds at all, especially just when we're developing. But in order to start developing, what we need to do is just click here where we can say or install the Maps SDK, just click on web because we're going to be building out a web project. And this says select the method for installing the Mapbox GL.js. We're going to be using the Mapbox CDN because it's the easiest way to use this. And here it says we need to include these different files. I'll just zoom this in so that you can read it a little bit easier. So to do this, we need to create an index.html file to house all of these different pieces of information. And if you're using Visual Studio Code, you can click exclamation point and then hit enter. And it's going to generate all of the boilerplate HTML code that you need in order to build out a website. So now we have our website up here. And what we need to do is just copy this code. We can click this copy button over here. And we're just going to paste it inside of our project. I'm going to fix up this formatting a little bit. And there we go. Now if I save, you can see that we have the script tag for Mapbox as well as the style sheet for Mapbox inside of our project. We'll click on next. And the next thing it says we need to do is add this code to the body of our HTML. This right here is going to be our access token. You're going to need to use your own access token because I'm going to be clearing out my access token and removing it after I'm done with this video. So that way you can't actually use my access token. You'll just need to use your own. So we need to copy this map, for example, and this script tag. We'll just click this copy and put it inside of our body. And right now, the script is just hard-coded inside of our HTML. That's okay for now, just to get this set up. But once we actually start writing out the code for our project, we're going to move this inside of its own style sheet. We'll click save again, and then we'll click next, and it's going to say congratulations, that's all we need to do. So to see if this actually worked, let's just right click on our thing and open it with live server. And you see we have a map from Mapbox. We can zoom around this map, move around. We can do a bunch of different things with this map. We could zoom into the US, we could zoom over here into, Ireland, England, Denmark, whatever we want to do. We can do everything inside this map. Now, since we're going to be using this as a Google Maps clone, I essentially want the map to take up the entirety of my page. I'm going to get rid of these hard-coded styles here. And instead, I'm just going to write some really simple styles in the head here for our map. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the margins on our body by just saying margin 0. And then I'm going to select the map and I want it to fill the entire height and width. So we're going to say height is 100 VH. That's 100% of the screen. And width is 100 VW, which is 100 the width of the screen. If I save, you can now see the map has filled our entire screen, and no matter what I do to our screen size, it's always going to fill the entire thing. Now you will notice that you can't right-click on this map to get to your development tools. You can just click Control-Shift-I. That's going to bring up your development tools if you're inside of Chrome, which is really useful. So with that done, the next step is going to be to create our own style sheet so that we can move this code outside of the body of our HTML. So we're just going to create here a script.js, and I think I said style sheet earlier. I really just mean a script tag. And I just want to copy all of this code into here, remove this script here, and then add a script up to our head. So we can say script, and we want it to be script.js, and we want to defer this. So hopefully if everything works, we should see this loading. And of course, we're not seeing anything show up. And that's because I didn't save our script file here. If I just save that, you can now see this loads up just like we'd expect. So now we have our script file linked up to our actual page itself. The next step we're going to do is I want to actually set this access token here to its own variable. So we can just say const mapbox access token is going to be equal to this token here. I'm just going to copy this up to here. This just makes it a little bit easier to work with in my opinion because we have it separated into its own constant variable as opposed to being just a hard-coded string here. And also, we can move this access token into this map function here. So we can say access token is equal to that mapbox access token. We can just get rid of this line here completely. Now if we save, everything again should still be working as we expect. Now before we start adding functionality into this application, I first want to explain what's going on. So inside of our index.html, we're loading in some JavaScript and CSS in order to load our Mapbox map, which we can see over here. Then we're just adding this simple div, which has an ID of map, making it fill the entire screen, and then we're running our own JavaScript. In this JavaScript, we're taking this access token that we have, which we can actually get access to if we just click this up here. We can scroll all the way to account. And if we go to our account, once this loads, we can click on tokens, and you can reference your token here as well. If for some reason you don't have access to it, it's going to be accessible right there. You can even create new tokens. I'm going to be deleting mine after this video. So again, you have to use your own token. Then we're using this Mapbox.gl variable here. And what this is essentially an object that is provided by this script up here. And since we loaded this script before we loaded our own script, it's actually coming into our application, and we can use that Mapbox.gl. So this is just creating a global variable from this script right here. And since our script is after it, we can reference that variable inside of our script. Then we're referencing this map class, essentially this map type, creating a new map type, giving it our access token, the container, which is just the ID of our div right here, and then giving it a style, essentially what type of map do we want. In our case, a street map is exactly perfect since we're going to be rendering out a street-based application. All of that combined together gives us this page over here, which is an entirely usable and navigatable map. But right now, we can't actually do anything on this map other than look at the map, which is pretty useless. So the next thing I want to do is make it go to our exact location. I want it to zoom in to wherever I am. If I'm in Russia right now, or if I'm in Niger, if I'm in Brazil, I want it to zoom to exactly where I'm at. So in order to do that, we need to use the geolocation API built into the browser. To do that, we can just say navigator dot geolocation dot, and then we want to get our current position. And inside of here, we pass a few different properties. It's going to have a success callback, an error callback, as well as some different options. So we're just going to say success location, error location, and then for our options here, there's going to be something called enable high accuracy. I'm going to set that to true since we want this to be as accurate as possible. And now if we just save this, we're of course going to get some errors. If I inspect our page, you're going to see no reference to success location. So what I need to do is define a function called success location, which takes in a position. And I need to take in a function called error location, which is just not going to take anything in. And here we'll just say console.log error. Essentially, this means we couldn't get the location. So now if I just move this over here a little ways, and up here you see this little location icon. Right now it says I've allowed access for my location to be used. If I blocked this, click done, you can now see when I refresh our page that we're getting error printed out because it can't access my location because I've blocked it. We can unblock that, click done, refresh, and now we no longer have that error. Also, something that's really interesting, if you click these triple dots in your dev tools, go down to more tools, there's this section called sensors. If you click on that, it'll open up this little window down here where you can override your location. For example, we could override to a location unavailable, essentially an error. Now when we refresh our page, in our console, it's printing out error because it can't find our location since we set it as unavailable. I could also say my location is London. Now if I refresh, right now it's not printing anything out, but if we come in here and just say console.log position and save, you can now see it's printing out information related to London itself. You can see we have coordinates, the latitude, longitude, and this is the latitude, longitude of essentially London. So what I want to do is I want to zoom into the map at our current location whenever we get a location. So let's just minimize this here out of the way. And what I want to say is on success, I want to zoom to our location. So we're going to create a function called setupMap. And here we're going to pass it our latitude and our longitude. So to get that information, we could say position dot chords dot longitude. This is going to give us our longitude. And with Mapbox, everything goes longitude first, then latitude second. So we could say position dot chords dot latitude. And that's going to be the second element inside of our array. So we have a longitude, latitude array. We're passing to this setupMap function. So now we can create that function called setupMap. And this right here is going to take our center position. And then I'm just going to create our map inside of here. Let's make this a const variable. And what we can do is we can specify a new property called center, which we're just going to set to our center position. And we can also set a zoom level. In our case, I'll just set this zoom to 13. Or even, let's just make it 15. We're going to make it fairly zoomed in. So now instead of creating our map up here, we're just going to get rid of that completely. And instead we're calling setup map if we find our location. Otherwise, if we don't find our location, we're just going to pass it a default set of coordinates. And I'm just going to use a different city here. So we're going to say 2.24 negative and 53.48. You can use any location that you want. This is just going to be our fallback where it zooms in no matter what. Because right now it's just kind of zooming into the middle of the ocean, which is not really that useful. So now if we save this, you're going to notice something interesting. It zoomed us in here, right into the middle of London, as you can see. And the default location that I said, if I zoom out a little further, is testable. If we just come in here, get to our dev tools, change this to location unavailable. Now, when we refresh our page, you're going to see instead of zooming us into London, if we just zoom out here a little ways, it's zooming us into Manchester. That's what these coordinates are associated with. I just put that as our default value. So now we're able to get our current position, which right now we're just faking as London by using the dev tools. If I just open those back up, what we're doing is just faking that we're in London currently. And if for some reason we can't get our current location, it's just falling back to Manchester as our current location. So right now we have the ability to get our location and show it on a map, which in itself is already really cool. But now let's be able to create directions inside of our map. To do this is actually quite easy. If we go into Mapbox, what we need to do is find the actual documentation. So we can just say that we want to go to our dashboard here. We want to go to web. And let's just click on these triple dots up here. And what we should be able to come down to is documentation. So we're going to click on documentation and we want the Mapbox GL.js documentation. This is for the web version. We'll click read documentation. And inside of here, we want to find navigation. So in order to do that, there's this search up here. Let's just search for navigation. Click enter. See navigation control. This is not quite what we actually want. Navigation control allows us to actually zoom and pan around our map without actually clicking. We can have buttons for it. So I'm going to show you how to actually add that because this is actually pretty useful. To do this, if we read through the documentation, you see we can create a new Mapbox GL navigation control. And we're just going to call this const navigation controls. And then all we need to do is add those controls. So we can say const add, map.add control. And we want to add our navigation controls. And we can specify a location or we can leave it blank and it'll show up in the top right. As you can see now here, we have plus and minus buttons that I can click. And I also have a pan button so I can rotate our map, skew it up and down, all that fun stuff. So now let's actually figure out how to add directions to this. What I need to do up in our search box, just scroll this up a ways, is type in direction. And of course, I'm not seeing anything show up. So the next best step is to go over to this plugins because this is actually a plugin. So now if I search for direction, you can see Mapbox GL directions. And if I click on this, it's going to pop me over to their GitHub page. I'll just zoom this in so it's a little easier to read. And if we scroll down here, it tells us how to set up Mapbox. And this is one of the ways that we can set up Mapbox by requiring it with all this. This is not how we're going to do it though. We're just going to be directly referencing the Mapbox file, just like we did up here. And the easiest way to see how to do that is if we just click on this link down here, this is going to bring us to a live working example where you can see that we can click on a place, click on another place, and it's going to give us the directions between those different places. And down here, it shows us the code on how to do that. As you can see, they have a script tag for Mapbox. They have the link for Mapbox. And then down here, we have another script tag and another link tag for Mapbox directions. So let's copy these script and link tags. We just want to make sure we put these after Mapbox. So we'll put them right here, just fix our spacing a little bit. There we go. So now we have the script tag and the link tag. Now what we can do is scroll down here and you can see we're just creating a new Mapbox directions control. So let's just copy this code. We'll even copy this top left portion. And what we need to do is say that we want to create const direction controls equal to this. And if we save this and set this as our Mapbox access token, we just need to give it our access token. Then we can say that we want to add this control. We're going to add our directions control into the top left, which is what they're doing in their example. Now when we save this, come back over here, we now have that starting location and ending location. And I could type in, for example, London, and let's say here, and I want to do Manchester. There we go. and now it's going to give us directions. Right now I'm really zoomed into my browser. If I zoom this out to 100%, you can see it looks a little bit better. And we have our directions all the way from London to Manchester. It also tells us each individual step. We can click on a step and be brought exactly to where that turn is on our trip. And again, we can change our directions to be, for example, traffic based. So it's going to tell us the quickest route based on traffic. Driving is just without traffic. We do walking, which is going to give us the quickest walking path, which is very ill-advised if you're going from London to Manchester. We could do cycling, for example. That's going to give us the quickest biking path, which again, sounds absolutely terrible. That would take forever. But really, this is perfect. This is just like Google Maps, and you built it in essentially no time at all. And that's all there is to this super simple project. In the next section of the course, we're going to be talking about modulars and bundlers and how they are so useful for making your code so much cleaner and also using external libraries instead of just having to link them up in the head like this. So I can't wait to see you in that next video.